Burning fat. Are you trying to burn fat? Well, let me give you the top 6 tips that are proven to help you burn fat most effectively. Are you ready? Here we go. Number 6, don't eat late at night. Common sense. The later you eat, the more likely you're going to store instead of burn. Makes sense, right?
Okay. Is it true?
Yes and no. That is actually technically true. We do have studies where they took people and fed them the exact same food, early feeding chronotype and late feeding, and hunger scores are slightly higher with late feeding. So it's technically possible that if you eat all your food late at night, you might have higher. There was a ghrelin to leptin ratio that was slightly worse for under a 24-hour area under the curve with eating calories late versus eating calories in the morning. So if you looked at the blood levels of leptin to ghrelin, like ghrelin hunger hormone, leptin non-hunger hormone, and you compare the area under the curve, eating everything early is slightly worse than eating everything late. But this dude said this was the top 6 ways to burn fat. No, the effect there is microscopic. Like what you eat is infinitely more important than when you eat it. But there's no comparison. So I'm glad. I'm assuming number 6 was like the least good, but I'm pretty sure that eating earlier is not in the 6 very best ways to lose fat. But technically, there is a little truth to what he's saying.
It's
there.
more like top 60 or something.
I mean, okay, maybe top 20, but it's not terrible advice. It is there is a little something to it.
It's kind of interesting because some people do 16-8 fasting and most people skip breakfast and eat most of their foods late. But technically speaking, at least in theory, it might be even better to have breakfast and lunch and skip dinner.
Yeah, I mean, technically, if you look at all the evidence on time-restricted feeding, earlier is a little bit better than later. But then I got patients just eating later because it's more convenient for them and they can hang out with their family. And then that makes it way more important than the very, very tiny change in hunger hormone ratioing. I think metabolic rate was a tiny bit lower with late eating also, but it was like very small.
Okay, so most people could just ignore that one. Let's move on.
Number 5, intermittent fasting.
Oh, okay. Intermittent fasting. What do you say?
Intermittent fasting. Okay, we have lots of studies now. It is a tiny bit beneficial. It's like basically proven. Like intermittent fasting is lightly beneficial. Very slight benefit that you could layer on top of any other diet approach or anything else you're doing, but it's very limited and it doesn't scale well. It's not like, oh, well, if a little fasting is good, more fasting is better. No, it starts going backward. So yes, you could add a tiny sliver of benefit. Really, it just gets people more in touch with hunger and fullness because there are clear delineations between those two. And it also prevents snacking, which is massive. So it keeps you bolusing your meals instead of just grazing for 11 hours a day like the average American. So I do like a light intermittent fast as a very slight add-on to everything else you're doing. But again, what you're eating is infinitely more important than when you're eating. So this should be in the top 20. But I don't know about number 5. Like, okay, it's not terrible advice.
Can I make the case for fasting in the sense that, studies show it's probably a small effect if you eat exactly the same thing, right? But like you alluded to, if you do, let's say, a 16-8 fasting, you are going to skip your breakfast, you're going to skip your late night snacking. Maybe you're going to skip the worst meals from a satiety calorie perspective because, a lot of people eat perhaps not the greatest breakfast. You can imagine lots of low satiety per calorie stuff in there, and certainly late night snacking tends to be among the worst foods we ever eat, right? So if you exclude those foods, so on top of the small effect of intermittent fasting with the same foods, you also get the potentially huge benefit of excluding your worst foods. What do you think about that?
Yeah, brilliant. Basically, if you cut out breakfast and late night snacking, those are the 2 lowest protein containing meals or eating occasions that your average person has. So that's an instant win. That's a really good point. I like it.
So if you include that, would you say intermittent fasting makes the top 5?
I mean, he's right. Like, it is helpful.
Okay, let's move on.
Number 4, eat slowly. The more slowly you eat, the quicker you get full. And that's essential if you want to cut down calories and not put on fat.
Eat slowly. Number 4.
Oh, okay. All right. This is super weird. Okay. The fact is, so like we know that eating speed is a huge factor with ad lib caloric consumption. It's basically how fast can you get the calories down. So it's energy density of food multiplied by eating speed. If I eat really fast and I have a high energy density food, I'm going to consume the most calories. If I eat really slow and I have a low energy density food, I'm going to eat the least. So eating speed is a big deal. However, we have studies where they make people chew their food 100 times or just like intentionally chew more oral processing time. When you make yourself do that artificially, they score people higher and higher on disgust and revulsion and unhappiness. It's just gross as hell. If you literally make yourself over chew your food, it's revolting and disgusting and nauseating. That does make you lose weight, but you're not happy. And so it's short term.
Like who would keep doing that if you hate it? I mean, I would hate it.
It's terrible. What you want is a food that you kind of like, but naturally has a super high oral processing time. Like, you have to chew the hell out of it. Like carrots. Like, I eat carrots every day for a snack. I'm eating like a half a pound of carrots. I have carrots everywhere. I have baby carrots in a fridge in my office at work. I got carrots everywhere.
Do you get orange by doing that?
I'd have to juice them. I have had patients who were juicing 30 pounds of carrots a day, and they were super orange, like crazy orange, like, oh my God, orange. So I haven't gotten to that level yet, because juicing actually negates what we're talking about here, which is oral processing time, surface hardness, and you get a higher satiety per calorie. We're not really capturing surface hardness with the Hava app because it's not on the nutritional label, so there's no good way to quantify it. But you're better off eating carrots than pureeing all your carrots and drinking them.
Eating speed, but you recommend getting that up by choosing other foods rather than chewing a lot and eating slowly. It's just super gross for most people.
Yep, absolutely.
Number 3, drink a lot of water. This is really important. It's actually proven to help keep the fat off of you. Drink at least 8 glasses a day.
Okay. Water. Are you drinking water now? I have my water here. So
I got coffee. Like, I detected that the coffee level in my bloodstream was kind of low, so I'm trying to correct it. I like this advice. This is good. A bunch of reasons. Well, first of all, some people can't tease out thirst from hunger very well. So, sometimes if you think you're hungry but you drink something, you're kind of not that hungry. So if you stay well hydrated, this sort of gets rid of any crosstalk between thirst and hunger. Also, it does increase volume in your stomach, which adds a little bit of satiety, and people eat less. We have all kinds of studies on people who drink, 2 8-ounce glasses of water half an hour before their meal. They eat like 100 calories less on ad lib diet. So there's definitely evidence for staying well hydrated. Fat is very dehydrated to be stored. The reason fat is the lightest form of stored energy is because it has no water in it at all. So in order to break down fat and perform lipolysis, it takes a fair amount of water. You have to rehydrate it. And there is, if you're dehydrated, are you going to have less lipolysis? Possibly, maybe. Yeah. So I think it would take extreme dehydration to really cause that. But yeah, this is good advice. Like, drink water. Sure. Absolutely. There's a reason why all your Instagram model fitness influencers are just carrying around this giant water bottle everywhere they go. Like, all of your bikini models and your bodybuilders have this giant thing of water everywhere they go. I think that's good advice. That's reasonable. I like it.
All right. See you next one.
2, cut out the carbs. Now, this may be common sense to some of you guys out there that are doing low carb diets, but cutting down carbs, especially refined carbs and simple sugars, is essential so that you don't store all those calories.
Okay, carbs. A lot of people listening will agree, I'm sure. What do you say?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, yeah, he's totally right. Refined carbs are bad. Should definitely cut down on those. He said that the carbs were easily stored or something. Technically, you store dietary fat as fat easier than you store dietary carbs as fat. You're only going to convert those carbs to fat after you've basically filled up your liver muscle glycogen, and only then will you create de novo lipogenesis and turn your carbs into fat. So I don't know about like, oh, don't eat carbs because you're going to store them as fat. That's not quite true. But refined carbs have horrible satiety per calorie, really high glycemic index ones. You're probably going to be hungrier downstream and eat more. And we have studies showing this refined carbs have bad satiety per calorie. So I mostly like this. I think this is good advice.
Yeah, I mean, technically speaking, it's not the carbs that are getting stored. It's, you're storing the fat you're burning because you're eating a bunch of carbs. But, that's a technicality. It still it's still bad for weight loss, right?
Yeah. The spirit of what he's saying there is right on.
Let's hear number one then.
And number one, and maybe just as important as all the others, weight training. This is correct. Weight training for men and women has been proven to help you burn fat and build muscle. You don't have to get bulky. You can do a lot of reps at low weights, but weight training is essential if you want to do it the most effectively. In any case, if you have experience with burning fat, or if you've tried any of these, I look forward to hearing your comments from you soon. Thanks so much for watching.
All right. That's slightly surprising. Weightlifting number one for fat loss.
This is amazing. This is awesome. I actually love this. So if you look at total daily energy expenditure, you've got basal metabolic rate, which is, 60, 70%, and then physical activity, which is only like 30% on top of that, right? And so out of your caloric burn every day, the basal metabolic rate is by far and away the biggest component. You're always going to burn way more calories from just your body size, basal metabolic rate, than you are from physical activity. And then when it comes to basal metabolic rate, that's mostly your lean mass. Your lean mass has at least triple, more than 3x the metabolic rate of your fat mass. If you divide your body into lean mass and fat mass, the lean mass is 3x or 3.5x the metabolic rate of the fat mass. So most of your calories every day is lean mass. That's mostly skeletal muscle. So how much muscle you have is basically how many calories you're burning. If I could, if I take a patient in clinic who's kind of sarcopenic and struggling to only eat 1,400 calories a day because otherwise they gain weight, and I just like touch them with a magic wand where they had an extra slab of 30 pounds of muscle or something, their basal metabolic rate's much higher. They get to eat way more food. And it's just so much easier for them to stay lean because they're eating a lot more calories, even if they're not exercising. So yeah, I love this. You want the highest lean mass you can get. That's protein and lifting. And this is brilliant advice. The fact that he put this at number one, that's a little bit controversial when it comes to just fat loss, because I would say to maintain fat loss, this is the number one advice. Have more muscle. I think that's brilliant. But to actually achieve fat loss, I think that's better done with diet. So it's like to lose a bunch of weight, it's diet or even cardio. But then to keep it off, you want a better body composition with a lot more lean mass and a lot higher basal metabolic rate, even when you're just sleeping in bed all night. So this is good. This is good. It's just a little, I don't know about the top 6 for fat loss, but this is great advice. Love it.
Sure. Weight loss, weight training, good either way, whether it's number one or not.